Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. I welcome you all to the second episode of the Mahabharata, and I hope you all enjoyed the first one. As in the first episode, I would like to start this also with the Dhyana Shlokam of the Mahabharata. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet. So where did we stop in the first one? We stopped where Vaishampayana tells Janamejaya that I will now tell you how my Guru Sri Vyasa wrote the Mahabharata. Vedavyasa asked the help of Lord Ganesha in order to write the Mahabharata. He agreed, that is Lord Ganesha agreed to write the Mahabharata on one condition, that Vyasa shouldn't stop the narration at any point of time. Vyasa also agreed to this, but he gave his own condition that Ganesha shouldn't write any word without understanding it completely. Ganesha thus broke one of his tusks and used it as a pen to write the Mahabharata, and in this way Ganesha and Vedavyasa together wrote the Mahabharata over a period of many years and many months. They sat outside under the sun and they both faced each other, and Ganesha wrote, while Vyasa recited the slokas. Whenever Vyasa felt that he had to take some rest, he would recite a particularly difficult shloka or any difficult word, so that by the time Ganesha took the time to understand it, Vyasa would walk around a little or have some water. In this way, Vyasa composed the entire Mahabharata, and he had to sacrifice his food, rest, and his small comforts for so many years and so many days together in order to bring this great epic to us called the Mahabharata. And the Mahabharata is the longest poem in the world. And he did all this for the entire of humanity, so that in future humanity should never take the path of adharma, and everyone should always have prosperity, peacefulness and happiness in their lives. Janamejaya at this time looked at Vyasa and he was very surprised. Vyasa had sacrificed so much for humanity. He had sacrificed so much in order to bring this great epic to the society, but he didn't show any trace of pride or any trace of satisfaction or happiness on his face. He had sacrificed so much, and so he had become very thin, but still he was as calm and as peaceful as ever. And that is what all of us need to learn, that whatever we may achieve in life, we always have to be calm and composed and should never take pride in what we have done. We should always be so humble, and Vyasa was so humble that he didn't even recite his own scripture and asked Vaishampayana to recite it. And then Vaishampayana continued, saying that now that you know how my Guru wrote the Mahabharata, I will tell you how your family and how your entire dynasty came to be known as the Bharata clan or the Bharata dynasty. King Dushyanta, there was a king named as Dushyanta of the Kuru clan. He married Shakuntala, who was the adopted daughter of a sage known as Kanva Maharshi. He married Shakuntala, who was the adopted daughter of a sage named as Kanva Maharshi. Shakuntala and Dushyanta together had a son whose name was Bharata. After their marriage, Dushyanta left Shakuntala and Bharata at the ashram of sage Kanva and went back to the city to continue with his ruling of the empire. And Bharata was growing in the ashram among the animals in the forests, and he used to listen to the sages, his grandfathers Kanva Maharishi and other sages reciting the Vedas every day. And the Vedas filled him with such a sense of joy, and It filled him with so much of pleasure, and he also felt that the Vedas told him what dharma was, and thus he understood that it was his duty to protect the people. Even though he was a very small boy, he understood that as a prince, he had to protect his people. And not only as a prince, but even as a small boy, he used to protect the people in the ashram from the attacks by wild animals. But he didn't kill any of the animals. He only subdued all of them. And he just made them peaceful because that was dharma according to him. And so sage Kanva also called him as Sarvadaman, the subduer of all. And he blessed Bharata, saying that he would be a great warrior one day. Bharata thus grew in the sage's ashram, and he learnt all the scriptures and all the art forms. And one day Shakuntala was fully engrossed in thoughts about Dushyanta because she was missing her husband. And that day Durvasa had come to the ashram of sage Kanva. Durvasa was another sage who was very well known for his short temper and for his curses. As Shakuntala was lost in the thoughts of Dushyanta, she didn't notice Durvasa coming, and she failed to serve him properly. Durvasa immediately got angry and he cursed Shakuntala, saying, "The person whom you are thinking of will forget about you, even once you go in front of him." This was the curse that Durvasa gave Shakuntala. Shakuntala was immediately very sad and disturbed, and she begged the sage to make his curse little less hurting. So Durvasa immediately told that, okay, the person whom you are thinking of will forget you and will remember you only when you produce before him any personal item or any personal token which he gave to you. And the only personal token which Shakuntala had of Dushyanta was their wedding ring. So after this incident got over, then Shakuntala was sad, and she kept the ring very close to herself and very carefully because that was her only connection to Dushyanta now. Bharata then grew old, and one day Shakuntala decided that it was time to take him to the city where Dushyanta was, so that he would become the next prince. So on the way, they had to cross a river by a boat. And while they were crossing the river, the ring, their wedding ring, which was on Shakuntala's finger, slipped from her hand into the water. And Shakuntala didn't notice this at all. She took Bharata and went to the city, and when Bharata saw her, he didn't recognize her at all, and he said that, "I'm not aware of who you are." Shakuntala then looked at her finger and to her horror noticed that the ring was missing. She tried explaining to him and pleading to him, but it was in vain because of Durvasa's curse. So then what happened that was in the evening, so Shakuntala returned back disheartened, and that evening a fisherman who had caught the fish where Shakuntala's ring, caught the fish in which Shakuntala's ring was, cut open that fish and found the ring there. The fish had swallowed the ring, and when the fisherman cut open the fish, he found the ring there. And he was astonished and could identify that it was a royal ring with a royal seal which was there on that ring. So he immediately took the ring to the court and produced it before King Dushyanta. Dushyanta immediately saw the ring and recognized that the woman who had come that morning was indeed his wife, and the boy who had come with him was indeed his own son. Dushyanta immediately asked Shakuntala to forgive him, and All the three of them began living happily. So, Bharata, after Dushyanta, Bharata became the next king. But Bharata soon realized that the territories outside his kingdom were suffering. They had corrupt rulers, and the rulers always wanted only money and were wasting human life. So the people in all of these countries sent messages to Bharata asking him to free them from all this corruption and establish a very peaceful land. Bharata was disturbed by all these messages and decided to do something for the people. And so what he did was, he took the mighty army of the Kuru clan and attacked all the corrupt rulers. And true to his name Sarvadaman, even now he didn't kill any of them, but through diplomacy and through his clever political tactics, he brought all of the corrupt rulers under his control. And instead of war, he encouraged friendship, and the people were now allowed to trade between all the countries, and thus there was an order of law and prosperity throughout the land. The people were very happy with Bharata, and they could now perform more of good deeds. They could live freely and could pursue more spiritual lives. Bharata performed many grand yajnas and thus promoted cooperation and friendship amongst all the countries and all the people. Eventually, he performed the Rajasuya Yajna with the permission of the rulers, and thus the Yajna granted him the title of Emperor or Chakravarti. Bharata then set about to establish more principles of dharma in the land, and Bharata thus conquered China, Afghanistan, and all those countries, but he didn't steal the countries for himself. All these countries were independent, and the rulers had the freedom to rule the country in whichever way they want, unless they took to the path of adharma. As long as they stuck to the path of dharma, they were free to rule the country in whichever way they want. People from so many diverse cultures could now freely travel, communicate, and they could trade among themselves and share knowledge, share many commodities, and share all their goods. The people loved Bharata for giving them this freedom and enabling them to pursue spiritual lives, and thus they decided to name the empire and all the descendants after Bharata as the Bharata clan or the Bharata dynasty. So this was how Janamejaya's dynasty came to be known as the Bharata dynasty. After this, Bharata decided to have an heir to his throne, a story of which we will be seeing in the next episode. Thank you very much. Hari Om.